Welcome to Hong Kong Ghost Stories, where the mists of our harbor carry whispers from beyond. Tonight, we travel to a remote fishing village in the Sai Kung peninsula, a quiet corner of Hong Kong where locals still avoid walking alone after sunset. Not because of thieves, but because of a ghost. A woman who died with grief in her heart and love still clinging to her soul. Her name is Ah Mei. In the late 1800s, under British colonial rule, Hong Kong was changing rapidly. Steamships arrived from Europe, Victoria Harbour buzzed with trade. But in the small Hakka villages scattered across the Sai Kung peninsula, life moved slowly, untouched by time. Nestled near the bay in a modest stone house lived a young woman named Ah Mei and her husband Ah Kung. Their love was the kind people envied, pure, sincere, and full of quiet laughter. She was known in the village for her grace, skin like polished jade, lips soft as peach blossoms, and hair that flowed down her back like dark silk. Ah Kung, a humble fisherman who also farmed and harvested clams, always returned home before dusk to share simple meals with Ah Mei. They had met 3 years earlier at the village market. Ah Mei was selling dried fish from her family's catch when Ah Kung, carrying bamboo baskets, accidentally knocked over her display. He spent the entire afternoon helping her rearrange everything, and by sunset, they were laughing together like old friends. From that day, he found excuses to visit the market every week, always buying from her stall, always staying a little longer to talk. But their path to marriage was not easy. Ah Kung's family came from a long line of farmers and fishermen with some land. Ah Mei's family were boat people, looked down upon by those who lived on shore. His mother protested. His father warned him. But Ah Kung refused to listen. Love, he told them, does not care about which side of the water you were born on. Their wedding was simple but beautiful. They married at the small tin How temple overlooking the harbor, with offerings of oranges and tea laid before the sea goddess. Ah Mei wore a red dress borrowed from her cousin, and Ah Kung wore his father's old ceremonial jacket. As they bowed to heaven and earth, the village elders whispered that they had never seen a couple more meant for each other. Their neighbors often saw them walking by the harbor at sunset, barefoot, hand in hand, the world around them fading into stillness. Children would tease them for acting like newlyweds every day, but Ah Kung would simply smile and Ah Mei would blush. Every morning, Ah Kung would wake before dawn to prepare his fishing boat. Ah Mei would wake with him, packing rice and salted plums for his lunch, tucking a small red thread into his pocket for protection. Every evening, no matter how tired, he would return with stories of the sea, and she would listen, her head resting on his shoulder as the oil lamp flickered between them. Soon news spread that Ah Mei was with child. Joy filled their home like the scent of burning joss sticks. She began to hum in the evenings, softly stroking her belly as Ah Kung repaired fishing nets nearby. They decorated the baby's corner with colorful lanterns and tiny jade charms to ward off evil spirits. Every evening they lit incense and whispered prayers to the ancestors, asking for protection over the unborn child. But as the monsoon rains came early that year, so did troubling news. The British colonial government issued an urgent order. All able-bodied men from the fishing villages were needed to help construct military fortifications along the coast to defend against pirate raids and foreign threats that plagued the waters near Guangdong. Ah Kung was called. "I'll come back," he said, kneeling before Ah Mei as tears welled in her eyes. He placed a trembling hand on her belly, feeling the faintest of kicks. "Before the baby is born, I'll be home. I promise." Ah Mei nodded, but her hands gripped his tighter than ever before. In her heart, a shadow had already begun to form, a quiet voice whispering that this promise might be broken. As Ah Kung left with the other young men, barefoot and silent on the dirt path, Ah Mei stood in the doorway of their home, one hand over her swollen belly, the other clenching a string of prayer beads, watching until the boat disappeared down the misty harbor. And then she was alone. Days turned to weeks. The rainy season deepened. Alone in their stone house by the water, Ah Mei moved slowly now, her belly full, her body tired. The sound of the rain tapping on the tile roof became her lullaby, the wind her only companion. Every morning, she followed the same ritual. She would wake at dawn, light 3 sticks of incense at the small altar by the window, and pray for Ah Kung's safety. Then she would walk carefully down to the shore, one hand supporting her heavy belly, and look out toward the horizon, hoping to see his boat returning. But the sea remained empty. The neighbors tried to help. Old Mrs. Wong brought her salted fish and congee, staying to sweep the courtyard. Young Alan, whose own baby had been born 2 months earlier, would sit with her in the afternoons, teaching her how to fold cloth diapers and swaddle a newborn. Sometimes they would laugh together, imagining what the baby would look like. Would it have Ah Kung's strong nose? Ah Mei's delicate fingers? But as the weeks passed, the visits grew shorter. The women's smiles became forced. Ah Mei noticed how they glanced at her belly with worried eyes, how they whispered to each other when they thought she couldn't hear. One evening, old Mrs. Wang placed a bundle of protective charms on the table, red paper talismans with black ink prayers written by the temple priest. "You must keep these close, child," she said, her voice trembling. "The baby, it moves too much. It's not natural." Ah Mei tried to laugh it off, but the fear in the old woman's eyes stayed with her long after she left. As her labor approached, fewer people came. The village felt quieter, colder. Even the dog stopped barking when she walked past. Ah Mei spent her days alone, singing softly to her unborn child, telling it stories about its father, about the life they would have when he returned. Then one night, as thunder cracked through the sky like the voice of a god, the pain came. Her water broke as lightning lit up the harbor. She screamed, long, sharp, and desperate, echoing into the storm. No midwife could reach her. The village path was flooded. The fishermen were afraid to sail in the rising waters. She clutched the wooden bed frame, nails digging into the planks. Sweat poured from her brow, mixing with tears. The oil lamp beside her flickered wildly, casting ghostly shadows on the walls. She called out for help, but the wind swallowed her voice. She prayed to Tin Hao, the goddess of the sea. She prayed to her ancestors. She prayed to any spirit that might hear her. "Please," she whispered through clenched teeth. "Please let my baby live. Please let Ah Kung come home." She was alone. Hours passed. Screams became sobs. Sobs turned to silence. By dawn, when the storm finally broke, old Mrs. Wang came to check on her. She found the door hanging open, the inside of the house eerily still. The oil lamp had burned out. The incense had turned to ash. They found her lying on the floor, wrapped around the lifeless child, as if still trying to protect it, even in death. Her eyes were open, staring toward the window, toward the harbor, as if she had been watching for someone until her very last breath. The villagers held a funeral in the traditional Cantonese way. They dressed her in white mourning cloth, burned sandalwood incense, and placed paper money for her journey to the underworld. Some say her expression was peaceful. Others say her lips were still whispering his name, Ah Kung. Her body was cremated and her ashes scattered near the shore overlooking Sai Kung harbor, where her spirit, if restless, might see the sea and find her way home. And just as the wind settled, Ah Kung returned. The construction work had ended sooner than expected. Ah Kung, unharmed but weary, journeyed home by fishing junk, his heart filled with anticipation. He clutched a small carved jade pendant in his bag, a gift for the baby he hadn't yet seen. The journey home took 3 days. At night, lying on the deck under the stars, he would imagine Ah Mei's smile when she saw him. He imagined holding his child for the first time, feeling its tiny fingers wrap around his thumb. He had chosen names. If it was a boy, Alak for happiness. If it was a girl, Aing for blossom. He practiced what he would say, how he would apologize for being away, how he would promise never to leave again, how he would work twice as hard to give them a good life. His thoughts were filled with Ah Mei, how she would smile, how she might cry when she saw him. He imagined her standing on the dock, waving, calling his name. As his boat turned into the familiar waters of Sai Kung, a strange stillness settled over the harbor. No children played by the shore. No merchants called from their boats. Even the wind felt held. But there, standing at the stone steps in her white tunic, was Ah Mei. She smiled gently. "Ah Kung, you're home." He dropped his bag and rushed into her arms. Her touch was cool, but he didn't notice. She held a small bundle in her arms, their child asleep, wrapped in soft cloth. Ah Kung wept. "I'm sorry I wasn't here." "I'm so sorry," he whispered into her hair. Ah Mei only smiled, her voice soft as the mist. "You're home now. That's all that matters." The next few days felt like a dream. Ah Kung returned to daily life, grateful, even overwhelmed by joy. Ah Mei cooked his favorite meals, steamed fish, rice congee, humming gently in the evenings. She would cradle the baby in the candlelight and sing lullabies in a low, distant tone. But something felt wrong from the very first night. The house was colder than he remembered. The food, though beautifully prepared, tasted bland, almost flavorless. When he tried to look at the baby's face, it was always turned away, always sleeping, always silent except for the occasional weak cry that sounded more like wind than an infant. And Ah Mei never slept. At night, when he would wake, she would be sitting by the window, staring out at the harbor, rocking the baby mechanically. Her skin seemed paler in the moonlight. When he called her name, it took her a moment too long to respond, as if she were waking from somewhere far away. Ah Kung's neighbors avoided him. When he waved at them from the harbor, they turned away. When he tried to speak to them at the market, they made excuses and hurried off. Even the Taoist priests at the local temple crossed the street when they saw him pass. One evening, an old woman left a small bundle of red string and garlic on his doorstep. Protection charms. Ah Kung didn't understand. He thought it was just village superstition. But the nights grew colder. Strange things began to happen. He would wake to find wet footprints leading from the bed to the door, though neither he nor Ah Mei had gone outside. The mirrors in the house reflected only his image, never hers. When he stood beside her, it was as if she cast no shadow. One day, Ah Kung visited the market. A friend who hadn't yet fled the village pulled him aside. "Ah Kung," the man whispered, voice trembling. "You must leave. Listen to me. Ah Mei died weeks ago. We held her funeral. We saw her body cremated." Ah Kung stared at him, confused. "What are you talking about?" "I spoke to her this morning. She's alive. She's at home with our child." The man paled. "Ah Kung, you're living with a Yuan Gui, a vengeful ghost." Ah Kung dropped his basket and ran. Back at the house, everything looked the same. Ah Mei greeted him at the door with that same quiet smile. "You're home early," she said softly. Ah Kung stared at her. Her eyes, they were darker now, too dark. And her feet, they didn't quite touch the ground. He excused himself and walked into the kitchen. One of the old floorboards creaked beneath him. He dropped a chopstick through the slats. As he knelt to pick it up, he froze. From the gap between the boards, he saw Ah Mei's arm, thin, pale, stretching unnaturally long, reaching through the floorboards to retrieve the chopstick from beneath the house. Her bones bent in ways no living persons ever could. Ah Kung stumbled back in horror. From the other room, Ah Mei called out gently, "Is something wrong, Ah Kung?" Ah Kung fled the house that night, barefoot, heart pounding, racing into the darkness as the fog closed in around him. His breath came in gasps. His mind refused to believe what his eyes had seen. But the truth whispered louder with every step. Ah Mei was dead, and he had been living with her ghost. The villagers were already waiting at the temple. They had seen this before, not in their lifetimes, but in stories passed from their grandmother's lips. A ghost bound by love is the hardest to banish. Ah Kung collapsed at the temple gate, sobbing, begging the Taoist priests for help. That night, the village fell into silence. Not the peaceful kind, the heavy, suffocating stillness that comes before a storm. Back at the house, Ah Mei waited. She stood in the doorway, holding the baby, her eyes no longer loving. They were hollow, glassy, and endless. She knew he had run. She knew the truth had found him. And with that truth came betrayal. The oil lamps in the home blew out one by one. The air turned cold. That night, the villagers heard things they would never speak of again. The wind carried the sound of a woman's weeping, followed by screaming. Some say they saw her floating across the harbor, her hair dragging behind her like seaweed, her feet inches above the water. Others say the trees bent in her path, as if even the forest dared not block her way. One brave priest left a charm at the edge of her home, a sacred thread blessed with prayers. By morning, it had been burned black. Then people began to die. The man who warned Ah Kung was the first. They found him hanging from a tree by his own fishing net. His eyes were wide open, staring at nothing. His mouth was filled with dirt, as if he had tried to scream, but the earth itself had silenced him. 2 days later, a woman who had gossiped about the haunting at the market was found drowned. She was discovered face down in a shallow puddle no deeper than a child's ankle, her arms stiff as bamboo, her fingers clawed into the mud as if something had held her down. A fisherman who tried to burn offerings at Ah Mei's old house to appease her spirit never made it home. His boat was found empty, drifting in the harbor, a single wet handprint on the mast, fingers impossibly long and thin. The whisper spread like wildfire. Don't speak her name. Don't look toward the harbor at night. Don't question what you see. Leave offerings at your doorstep or suffer her wrath. Families began to leave. Some moved to other villages. Others fled to the city. Those who stayed locked their doors at sunset and burned incense through the night, praying to every god they knew. Old village elders remembered similar stories from generations past. One grandfather spoke of a woman in Taipei who had died in childbirth 100 years ago and haunted the river for decades. Another recalled a tale from Chung Chao about a bride who drowned on her wedding day and dragged 3 men into the sea before priests finally stopped her. But this, they said, was different. Ah Mei's love was stronger, her grief deeper. Her spirit would not rest until she got what she wanted. Her husband. Forever. Back at the temple, Ah Kung refused to eat. He spent days in silence, praying, weeping, trembling. A senior priest placed his hand gently on Ah Kung's shoulder and spoke. She is not evil, child. She is grief. She is love that refuses to die. Ah Kung fell to his knees. Then what do I do? How do I let her go? The priest looked toward the harbor, eyes distant. We don't fight a spirit like this. We help her remember how to rest. Word of the haunting spread beyond the village. At dawn, Taoist priests from distant temples arrived, robes rustling like whispers in the wind. They came prepared. The head priest, Master Chung from the Wang Tai Sin Temple in Kowloon, carried a wooden staff carved with dragon symbols. His 3 disciples brought sacred relics, ancient scripture wrapped in gold thread, bells blessed by ancestors who had fought demons in the old dynasties, and a clay jar inscribed with protective talismans, mystical symbols of containment and peace passed down for generations. For 2 days they prepared. They fasted. They chanted sutras without rest. They drew protective circles around the temple with cinnabar powder mixed with rooster blood. They wrote dozens of talismans on yellow paper, each one a prayer, each one a shield. On the 3rd night, when the moon was dark, they were ready. The plan was simple but dangerous. Lure Ah Mei to the shore, calm her spirit with offerings and prayers, and seal her soul within the clay vessel. But ghosts born of love do not go quietly. That evening Ah Kung stood at the edge of the harbor. The priests had drawn sacred symbols in cinnabar upon the stones, each one sealed with prayer. Incense smoke curled into the sky like fragile fingers. Paper offerings burned in a brass basin, flames dancing like lost souls. The chanting began, slow, rhythmic, ancient. Ah Kung held out his hands, voice trembling. Ah Mei, come to me. I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here to help you find peace. The water stilled. The air thickened. Even the insects stopped chirping. She came from the mist above the harbor. She emerged barefoot, clothed in her white funeral dress, now tattered and stained with water and earth. Her long black hair hung like a curtain across her face. In her arms, the baby, silent, unmoving, its tiny face hidden in shadow. Ah Kung stepped forward, tears streaming. I love you. I have always loved you. But this is not living. You are not meant to stay. Our child is not meant to stay. Ah Mei's face remained unreadable, hidden behind her hair. The baby began to cry, a thin, hollow sound that made the priests grip their staffs tighter. Behind Ah Kung, the priests intensified their chant, ringing small bronze bells in unison. The water shimmered. The clay jar began to glow with an eerie golden light. Ah Mei's expression twisted, not in rage, but in sorrow. Her voice, when she finally spoke, was broken, fragile, nothing like the gentle tone Ah Kung remembered. You said you would come back. You promised. You promised you would be here before the baby came. Ah Kung dropped to his knees, hands clasped as if in prayer. And I did. I came back. I came back as fast as I could. But you were already gone. You and our child, you were already gone. I waited for you, she whispered, her voice rising, cracking. I waited every day, every night. I lit incense. I prayed. And when the pain came, when our baby was dying inside me, I called for you. I screamed your name into the storm. But you didn't come. You didn't come. Her voice broke into a scream. Not with anger, but with the raw pain of a woman forced to relive her death, to remember every moment of suffering, of loneliness, of the terror of dying alone with her child slipping away in her arms. The sky darkened. Wind surged from the water, blowing the incense out. Trees bent as if bowing to her sorrow. The priests closed their circle. The head priest stepped forward, raising the glowing jar high above his head. He spoke a final chant, ancient words of binding, of release, of passage. Ah Mei screamed again, louder, a sound not human, a sound that seemed to shake the very stones beneath their feet. A sudden gust of wind knocked Ah Kung backward. The baby in her arms began to dissolve, turning to mist, to nothing. Ah Mei reached for it, desperate, but it slipped through her fingers like water through sand. And then silence. The moon broke through the clouds. The wind stopped. The water became glass. Ah Mei was gone. Only the baby's cloth remained, folded gently on the stones where she had stood. They placed the sealed jar deep beneath the temple's floor, encased in concrete, surrounded by protective talismans. Others say it was cast into the harbor that night, sinking slowly into the depths of Sai Kung, where it remains to this day. Whatever the truth, Ah Mei's spirit no longer haunted the house. But her love and her sorrow remained. The harbor grew quiet after that night. No more whispers, no more screams carried on the wind. Just the sound of water lapping softly against the stones and the distant ring of temple bells. But the villagers never forgot her. They never dared to. Years passed. Homes changed. Roads were built where dirt paths once stood. The old stone house where Ah Mei lived was torn down in the 1950s, replaced by newer buildings. Children grew up hearing the story from their grandmothers. Don't play by the harbor at night. Ah Mei still watches. And yet the fear faded into reverence. A small shrine was built near the shore where the priests say her spirit still lingers, not to harm, but to listen. To mothers praying for safe childbirth. To lovers begging for devotion. To the lonely whispering their grief into the incense smoke. Her image, once feared, now stands surrounded by lotus flowers, silk dresses, baby toys, and gold leaf offerings. A ghost no longer cursed, but honored. They call her Ah Mei now with affection, because even in death, she clung to that love, to memory. Even today, people from across Hong Kong visit her shrine. In 2018, a pregnant woman from Kowloon credited Ah Mei's blessing for her safe delivery after a difficult pregnancy. In 2022, a young couple getting married in Sai Kung left red envelopes at the shrine, asking for a love as strong as Ah Mei and Ah Kung's, but without the tragedy. Some light candles, some bring perfumes and ribbons. Some leave letters, folded carefully and placed at the altar, confessing their fears and hopes to a spirit who understands loss better than anyone. Local fishermen still tell stories. They say that on foggy mornings, when the mist is so thick you can barely see your own hands, you can sometimes hear a woman humming, a gentle lullaby carried on the wind. And if you're alone on the water at night, you might see her, standing on the shore, watching the boats come in, waiting, always waiting. But she no longer harms. She simply watches. And on some nights, when the harbor mist is thick and the moon is full, the water still reflects the shape of a woman in white, watching, waiting. Not for vengeance, but for the world to remember her. Not as a ghost, but as a woman who loved too deeply to let go. She is every woman who waited too long, every love that ended too soon, every goodbye that never had time to be spoken. Thank you for listening to Hong Kong Ghost Stories. If Ah Mei's story stirred your heart, like, share, subscribe, and light a candle for the ones who never got to say goodbye. Until next time, remember, some spirits don't haunt for hate. They haunt because they remember.